All right, we're going to go ahead and get started because we have a lot of material to cover today in a very short amount of time. My promise to everyone is that this is a half an hour long webinar so you can get on with the rest of your day. So without that, let's continue into some of our housekeeping items, quick introductions, and we'll move forward. So a few things first, as always, our slides and contact information will be shared following this webinar, and that includes any links, handouts that we mention during the webinar. I want to make sure that everyone has access to the resources that we cover today. Please ask questions. It is so important to me, to the rest of the team, that you get everything that you could possibly get out of this webinar. We want this to be valuable for you. And while we can anticipate what some of those may be, it's always great when we have some audience participation. And with so many folks on the webinar today, I'm sure that there will be quite a few that come in. We love to have them. And as always, the best way to keep in touch with us is by any of our social channels. Akumina is all over the place, any social channel you can think of. So please look us up. And we also share more content like this frequently, especially on our LinkedIn channel. So hoping that we have a few of you join us there. I am Samantha Kenny. I am in charge of marketing at Akumina, but part of my charter is to do a lot of thought leadership pieces, just general awareness about intranets and digital workplaces around the industry. We have found that intranet information, digital workplace information, unless you're speaking to a particular partner or a vendor, can be really difficult to get at, especially when you're talking about those inspirational pieces, because everything is behind a paywall. Everything is proprietary. It's very secretive in some capacity for some organizations. So we're trying to expose and inspire as much as we possibly can some of those attributes or features that are really making a big difference for our customers and for others that we know about through our partners in the network, simply because it can be so difficult to get there. It's not like you can just do a Pinterest search like you can for some of the website items. It can be really difficult, and it can be even more difficult to implement. So that's why we want to give you as much leeway as we possibly can when it comes to looking at future trends, because some of these can take some time. We believe, just in general, that the technology that you use at work should just be simple and intuitive. And we're the first people to let you know that it's not in some cases. It can be extremely difficult, especially when you're looking at different systems and integrations and just tools, teams, budgets, all of the things. And we're going to go into that in just a minute, in terms of what you would need to be able to implement a true functioning digital workplace that's relevant for every member of your team. So we recognize that there is a huge gap, but there truly doesn't need to be. There are pieces of technology out there. Akumina is one of them. We have several other folks in the market who are doing similar things, but we know that there are options out there for you, and we want to make sure that we're helping as much as possible to enable you and to enable your workforce. So in terms of what we're seeing, actually, modern intranets are really thriving. Anyone who's working on a modern intranet is doing a really good job. What we're seeing is that for the last, I don't know, you could even say forever, or 10 years, intranets were thought of, well, actually they weren't thought of in many organizations. They were an afterthought, most of the time developed with internal resources that always had a lot of other things on their plate. And because folks were in the office, or because people had access to the people that they needed just in the cubicle or the office around the corner, it didn't become a necessary thing to actually connect people digitally until the last 18 months. And we're all familiar with that. And I can't talk about the pandemic anymore. I feel like we've talked about it so much, and we'll be talking about it for a lifetime from now as well. So we recognize the fact that not all intranets are modern, and it's just because most people are turning to them now that folks have implemented the Zooms of Zoom, Slack, anything that you can get to make one-to-one connections. Now we're going back and looking strategically about how do we connect the entire organization, just not small work pods. And so that's a really big undertaking, and we're hoping that some of this information today will be useful for you. Now, before we get started, I just want to kind of level set and say we really do have two audiences that we're speaking to here. There's end users, and then there's digital workplace and intranet managers. And I do recognize the fact that most of the folks here, probably almost all of the folks here, are digital workplace and intranet managers, someone who has some stake, a stakeholder in the digital workplace or the modern intranet that they're either creating, trying to create, planning to create, whatever that may be. For today, though, we are going to focus on the features and functionality that are there to help your end users. So we're not going to be focusing on necessarily content creation and how easy that can be or things like that. What we're going to focus on today is things that you need to ultimately provide to your end users to give them that best experience that you can possibly have. We will do that whole digital workplace intranet manager webinar at a later time, but for right now, we're going to focus on end users specifically. Now, when we talk about end users, I want to know if some of these are familiar to folks. So there's a lot of challenges that come up when we're talking about from digital workplace and intranet managers, and these are just some of them. My favorite is we need help from an external partner and we need help from internal partners. So basically, you just need help all around to make an intranet work and to work effectively. So we did actually do a great webinar last month, 5 tips to unify your hybrid workforce, with Melissa Hutchins and our partner Christian Harity at Geodesic. Melissa did a fantastic job of walking through the work that they've done with Big Brothers Big Sisters. And so I would definitely recommend that you view the on-demand version on that if you want any tips in terms of planning your digital workplace from an intranet manager or a digital workplace manager perspective. But for today, chatting through the intranet challenges for our team members. And I think that these are universal, I would say. I hope that access isn't always an issue for folks, like I can't log into the internet, but sometimes it can be for mobile workplaces, or the can you just email it to me? That's one of my favorites. I'm so sick of hearing the content is old and outdated, as I'm sure a lot of you are as well. Can't find what I'm looking for. I didn't see that. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. And I'm sure that you could all add a series of additional thought bubbles to this particular slide. So what we're finding is that there is and I said this earlier, there is a gap. There's a gap between where we are in our personal lives with the Amazons and the Apples and all of the technology giants in the world, and then our workplace tools. And our workplace tools have not evolved to the level of usability that our home tools have. And so these are just a few of the stats that we continually bring up because they haven't really changed in terms of the availability, the efficiency, and honestly, the effectiveness of digital workplace technology and the productivity that ultimately results as a part of all of that. So because of these stats, we've gone ahead and identified 5 different areas of where we feel employee experience is important to be able to honestly be able to bring the business forward. What are the pieces of that hybrid environment, the digital workplace, modern intranet, whatever you would like to call it? And as we are building out our roadmap, these are the features and the trends that we are looking to ultimately satisfy as part of our part of moving forward. We're seeing all of these things become almost equally important. I mean, overall experience, of course, is the main thing that we're driving towards, but things like culture and wellness and team communication and employer to employee interaction, those are things that even a year ago we weren't talking about because it was simply just enable the team, make sure people can connect to each other. And now we're thinking a little bit more holistically and looking at what are those features and what are those things that we absolutely must have as we make our way into the next year, or another year of potentially or a lot of folks are going to be doing hybrid work. So here's our list of the 7 must-have intranet features for 2022. And we're going to go into each one of them individually with some examples of some from our customers, clients that we've actually implemented, which are doing really very well. So I'm not going to read through this list because we're going to go through them individually, but I do feel like each one of them has their own place. And I will caution that each one of these is also, or can be, an undertaking. I feel that an intranet project is just as important, if not more important, than what I would call a website project or a customer-facing project. And I think a lot of folks put so much time, effort, and energy into their customer or prospect facing website, their public facing website, and not nearly as much into their intranet or their employee facing website. And each one of these can be a complete undertaking in and of itself. And that does not, that absolutely does not fall on deaf ears for me and for us here, the team at Akumina. But I think it is extremely important to at least look through and plan these as part of your overall intranet or digital workplace roadmap, just because having that cadence, having that plan, understanding where you're going 1 to 3 years from now, all of that can honestly help you and the team as we move forward. And these are just some of the things that they may not be on your 12-month roadmap, they may be on your 3-year roadmap, but we're very excited to see some of these folks roll these things out in the market. So first thing, the table stakes. For us, table stakes include just being able to access what we would call the me bar. There's a lot of different ways that folks in the industry call this. Me bar is probably one of the most common. And a me bar is essentially all about, as it sounds, all about me. What are my tasks? What are my meetings? What are my team requests? Who's talking to me? Where do I need to be next? This is I would call it an integration, simple actually, in most cases, integration with Microsoft 365. For folks who are using Microsoft, then any type of SharePoint Microsoft products, if you are a Microsoft shop, this is something that is relatively easy to implement and is an absolute must-have. These are things that can come together fairly quickly and are a huge, huge, huge value add for your team. And here's another way of of displaying that information. This is for a customer of ours called GSK. They are a company, they own several brands both within the United States or globally, actually. And so this is another example of the me bar over here in terms of this person, Samit, who has the location turned on. It's all customized to them, completely customized to what's next in their day, what the information they want to see, all of the news they want to see. And I'll actually show you some additional tools that we've implemented for other clients that are pretty inspirational in terms of ways that you actually get at that information. But everything here, right from the homepage, completely and utterly customized to the individual. Now, I will say that this isn't just, although it does say, I just said customized to the individual. This is customized to the individual based on their interests, but also what the company deems that it's important for them to see. So there are 3 different ways of content, I would say, syndication. So we have content syndication, which is business syndication. So all of the content coming from the business that is important. So alerts, messages, signing up for benefits, company news, messages from the CEO. Those are all things that are extremely important for individuals to see. But then there may also be subscribed content. So content that the individual has decided that they want to make sure that they see. So in this particular example, any innovation content. There's also community content, or if anyone decided, I know one of the most important parts of the company intranets that I've been a part of in the past has been the classifieds. you gotta know who's selling stuff and where you can buy it. Being able to subscribe to those things. And then there's social aspects. And that's actually a really good segue into this next part, which is personalized experiences based on that. There are a few folks in the industry that have a concept that's called intelligent activity. Well, Acuminous is called intelligent activity streams, but essentially it's a social activity stream, very similar to what you would see on a LinkedIn or a Facebook, that surfaces all of the work tasks, work conversations. Even we have something called a kudos engine where you can actually go in and say congratulations to someone and then have reactions that are associated with it. That's another part that's really very, very exciting when it comes to personalizing and table stakes for individual users. These are built out through several different ways. One is through the description that I just gave, which is essentially social subscriptions and things like that. The other is based on persona builders, and personas are so very important. I know a lot of folks are completing that activity right now based off of Active Directory if you're a Microsoft shop. The other way that you can do it is off of a persona builder, which would be like a small third-party tool that sits in between your SharePoint and your application. So whatever that may be. At Acumina, we call it PeopleSync, but essentially it pulls information from a whole bunch of different sources to ultimately create a persona-based experience, and then ultimately can push information that the company wants individuals to see based on that persona. So it's a one-to-one and a one-to-many personalization approach. Here is another example of a personalized experience, and this is developed for one of our customers called KKI. We have other customers who are using things that are similar to this. This is just one of the latest versions that we have ultimately worked on. This is what I call preference picker. It's the initial visit to the intranet as soon as someone is onboarded, so onboarding picker, onboarded into the organization. So for a first login, it essentially gives the individual the opportunity to, one, become familiar with the intranet. Just what is it? What does the homepage look like? It's a simple guide. Some businesses that we work with have done videos, overview videos of here's the intranet, here's what you can find, here's where you get your relevant information. And it's always a nice kind of touch, especially when you're trying to help individuals get the information that they need very quickly. Then it goes into a series of questions around departments, countries. It allows you to put in your own skills and expertise, your own interests, or even search for other people within the company who might have a skill set that you would be interested in connecting with. So it allows you to pick and ultimately select each individual user, their attributes or interests. And it even goes as far as to pull in hashtags of different tags for content. So for example, if you never wanted to miss a message from your CEO, obviously the business wouldn't let you do that anyway, but if you never wanted to miss a message from your CEO, it would show up in your preference picker and your hashtag. All of this is completely customizable. So based on a few different things, the business can select based on role, what each individual would need to see, and then also give the opportunity based on permissions for individuals to also give their own experience, which is a really fun way to onboard yourself even into a new company. It's really exciting to go through this and to set this up for yourself and then see ultimately how that experience changes your homepage or your experience when you log in. It's really very cool. We do have a set of, and there's lots of folks who do this, a set of features that we have launched into something called Mission Control. For us, it is actually our mission. We believe that employees should be connected to the company, the tools, and each other, just to ensure that they are as productive as possible. And so as we pulled that together, we said, do we have any features? Do we have any functionality that ultimately pull that together? And that was where Mission Control came to be. So this little widget sits just on the side of any page on the intranet for our customers that have chosen to implement it. And it ultimately does connect to the company, to stuff. So the things, subscriptions, save for later, the tools, as you can see at the top, those are all based off of permissions as well, either by secure sign-on or something else. And they can be edited. So you can also make those either most recent, or you can make those your top selection. based on individual or based on role. Also, my documents and my contacts. My contacts is actually one of my favorite features, excuse me, because you can go in and not only use favorites. So for example, I may not talk to my boss every day, but I know that that's the person I want to be on the top of my list. And then you can also filter by recent. So I talk to my team every day and I make sure that they're all there. Obviously based on the conversations that we had, it makes it extremely easy, reduces context switching. And this is one of the most powerful features that we've seen that we're implementing into 2022. There are so many, so many opportunities right now for social and culture builds. It is, just speaking from myself, I know it is incredibly difficult to build culture in a team that even worked together prior to all working remote. But in addition to folks who you're onboarding in the middle of everyone working remote. So we have, as I mentioned before, the intelligent activity stream. Like I said, others have a similar social stream. This social stream is obviously created by our customer Unilever. Unilever uses this as, it was primarily originally implemented as a blog and then ultimately was morphed into what you see over here on the right-hand side, which is more of a posting engine. So you can ultimately, similar to what you can do in LinkedIn or Facebook internally within the company, write a community update, a team update, and have that published to everyone else who is in there to see that with their correct permissions. This has since evolved, and I actually am really upset that I didn't grab a screenshot of it now, but this has since evolved into also putting the activity stream within Microsoft Teams. So for those organizations who are using Microsoft Teams, down the left-hand rail, if you look closely at it, there's a whole bunch of different icons. You can actually include all of your intranet or even some of your intranet, for example, an activity stream right within Microsoft Teams. So I know for me personally, I'm living in Microsoft Teams, talking to my team all day, talking to other members of the company all day. If there is an update to my activity stream, it automatically pops up with an icon, or with a notification, so I can see that. And ultimately, it provides me complete and utter access to anything that is happening at my company while I'm on the go, because obviously Microsoft Teams is also mobile and I have the app on my phone. So this is really important for building social, building culture. There's additional things that you can do with this too, like integrating some of your systems. So Workday can go in here, and a few other things, anything to do with content and communication. I know I said I wasn't going to speak to the folks who are writing content and who are managing content, but there is a way to include workflow in here too. It just makes everything so much easier and reduces so much need for email. Yammer updates can go in here as well. So it's essentially a one-stop shop for everything communications wise here, which also just supplements what you're already doing in your news, and allowing people to build that culture by including some of the comments and reaction engines and things there. So just a few more features that I have left here that I want to talk to you about. So there's been a huge increase in just asking for, well, what can we do for wellness? What can we ultimately show folks and build an authentic experience to do that? So for one of our customers, we built out a widget that essentially is a wellness engine. It allows, there's two different pieces of it. It's an assessment survey, which has always been there for employees to ultimately give feedback on their manager, the company, how are they feeling? And we ultimately took that and turned it into a report, not a report, excuse me, this is a wellness report, but we turned it into a functionality where someone can ultimately say how they're feeling in a given point in time. So whether or not they're feeling stressed, they're feeling anxious, they're feeling happy. And ultimately, based on that reaction, it can recommend, based on their training or other subscription services that the company has put in place, either a meditation or some type of a mindfulness exercise. When I'm saying this, I understand that that's not for everyone, but for the company that we invested in working with them on it, it was a really meaningful thing for their employees. I've seen other wellness programs like Amazon Warehouse. They have the wellness kiosks, and this was almost kind of modeled after that, where the wellness kiosks at Amazon, you essentially stand in front of it and do the same kind of thing. Either exercising, you get up and move for 5 minutes, or you do a mindfulness exercise. And so this translates that ultimately into an online experience that you can do right from your desk based on how you answer the particular form. And then based on the size of the company, because obviously for regulations and things, privacy concerns, you don't want to do it for a smaller company, but based on the size of a company, you can also ultimately see how everyone answered for that particular day, whether or not people are using it, and then get the full report on that. But again, depends on the size of the company and how that comes together, but a really good idea if ultimately that's something that your business is focusing on in 2022. Connection to the business is something that our CEO, Ed, has continually ensured that it is part of our go forward strategy. And we're seeing a lot of others in the industry follow suit. It is 10 times more important that information get to individuals today than it was a year ago, just because there is no water cooler conversation, or there aren't as many. There aren't as many water cooler conversations. Emails can sometimes get lost. I know I get hundreds, if hundreds, we'll leave it at that, a day. So ensuring that there's lots of different opportunities for employees to receive information. So obviously this would be crazy. This is actually one side of a news and updates page. And then this is the other side of the news and updates page. It's basically one long scrolling page. So this would be completely crazy if this were all one page. But I did want to include it all so I can show everyone the different opportunities that are currently in the market right now for features to make sure that people in your company are seeing your news. So there's just the generic kind of I would call this table stakes news and updates part at the top here. And it does include things like reactions. And I know this is small, but ultimately includes reactions. Then you've got different features based on what you want to include to show for your employees. So all of these are drag and drop. You can select whether or not you want to use them, but you could do top stories. You could do recent stories. And then my favorite, so I do love media. I do love having the opportunity to include all types of media for those really progressive internal communications folks who are doing podcasts for their teams. I mean, that's just amazing. You guys are rocking it. That's a great place to show that. So these two, though, I think are really where folks are lacking. And I think these are going to become even more prevalent as we move into 2022. So there's the in case you missed it. So these are the pieces of news that the business absolutely wants to make sure that you see. And there are actually ways where you can tie in analytics to this in personas, which makes it even better. And then there's the personalized for me section. This is based off of everyone's hashtags, interests that they select, and they bring it right up to the top here. So these are the top stories, or you can do the most recent stories that match hashtags, that match authors, and they're all right here. And it's organized in a nice little visual way that also includes a show all button off to the side. So really very helpful way, lots of different ways to show content, lots of different ways to ensure that the news is actually being seen as a part of it. The other piece in terms of connection to a business that I wanted to highlight is that, and I'm pretty sure that most folks are doing this, but again, this kind of goes back to table stakes. I just want to make sure that this is something that I said I can go to bed at night knowing that I said it, is that having your brands, if there are companies out here that have more than one brand under a holding company or under umbrella, having all of the brands available to be able to click on, to move between, and to ultimately showcase information between, which I know is all in the setup of how the site comes together and things like that, is so wildly important. And I use the example of, I mean, if you don't have shared HR or shared marketing or things like that, getting even some type of a connection with someone who might be a subject matter expert in another brand is always so important. I know that's kind of a pie in the sky, nice thing to have, but ultimately just simply allowing folks to be able to search other brands or other sites if permission is given to do so is always so important. And now, so the last thing that I'm going to show you is, so we do have a process. It's actually been, it's been called several things. It's a process builder engine. And I know when I was at a former company of mine, we had a very sophisticated Excel spreadsheet that helped us do earnings releases every month or every quarter, excuse me. The earnings release was always something that included our CEO and his entire team. It included finance, it included regulatory, it included marketing, and all of these individual processes were kept in order via a spreadsheet. We have created essentially a tool that ultimately combines all of those different individuals, all of those different tasks, and it is available with the content that's associated with it too. Could you use an Asana? Could you use a Teamwork or something like that to do the exact same thing? Yes, but if you are already licensed and in a Microsoft environment, you don't have to duplicate that particular item. And it also allows for workflow process at the same time. So this is the example that I pulled in here. And this is an onboarding checklist for a particular individual, again, at KKI. And so the onboarding checklist, it's another function or another process that includes multiple people. So there's training, there's forms, you have HR, you have IT, you have people in your department you need to meet with. How do you know what to do in what order other than getting a nice list that is provided to you in a Word document? I would think for a lot of us, that's exactly how we were onboarded. And so to have something like this that shows here's the percentage, and to also allow my manager to check in on how I'm doing for those particular things, really very important, and honestly just very helpful as you make your way through the onboarding in the company. And then once this is completed, this actually changes to available training opportunities as well. So for those on this call who ultimately do a lot with training or have an onboarding program, have a training program that they have invested in, as I know a lot of us do, it is all available and can be integrated through this engine, which is wildly helpful, just to, again, make sure that your employees have the knowledge of what is available to them, and then ultimately allow management to see how is that going, how is that taken, just for everyone's benefit across the board. And I know I said mission control. See, it's right here, right over here on this thing, mission control. Click on that and you have availability for tools, people, all of those things I showed you. So with that, I know I spoke, I think, at lightning speed. I want to just check in and see if there are any questions that I can ultimately answer for anyone. I know, like I said, I know I spoke very quickly to go through all of those. I am more than happy to chat with anyone now, or I can have a follow-up call at any point in time. Again, more than happy to go through those even in more detail, because I'm sure those quick 1-minute intros to each one of those features that are must-have for 2022 was a little fast for all of us. While folks are thinking through if there's any questions or not, I did just want to quickly do a brief intro for another program that we're working on right now. So again, I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar that it is really, really hard to get information around digital workplace and intranet. It's hard to pull together a standard look at what's happening. Our analysts do a really good job of getting at that information as much as they can. But we're launching for the first time this year a 2022 State of the Digital Workplace and Modern Intranet survey. We are very excited to be leading the charge on this. I'm sure as we really need to understand where our industry is headed and how much it has changed over the last year or so. And right now, most of the data that's available is from 2020. And this is actually one area where I would say that information we just can't rely on. It's changed so much in 18 months. And so we're really excited to go to market with this. The link to the survey will be in the email with this presentation as well. And so I hope that you all would consider taking it and sharing it with other practitioners in the space if you find it useful. Again, it would be really helpful to us to be able to have that information. We are going to be ultimately showing that the results of that on December 7th at our results webinar. The folks who are on that webinar will receive the full report. The full report will be available to the general public in January following the holidays. So if you would like to participate, we would greatly appreciate that so that we can get a pulse on where our market is headed, what's going on, and just give general information out to the public in terms of our space. So with that, it looks like I don't have any questions on any of the features or the functionality that you saw today. So if anyone thinks of anything after, please, by all means, let me know. I'll be more than happy to answer, or if I can't answer, connect you with folks in the industry or with my team that can. And I appreciate everyone taking the time to join me today. I look very much forward to connecting with you soon, if at all possible. All right. Thank you so much. Enjoy your weekends and have a great day, everyone. Thank you.